Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Glenn Thayer.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing this month? How you doing? Good, good, good. That is a good thing. Because you know what? Welcome to the Big Ideas Theater. We've had over the last few days, we have been privileged to hear from thought leaders from so many different diverse fields. I mean, we've had astrophysics to emotional AI. And in this session, we're going to dive a little into neuroscience. So you're going to notice that this is a Wi-Fi free zone, okay? Some people are like, it's buffering, it's not working. That's right. We want you to unplug. We want you to think big. And we don't want you to be worried about anything else that's outside of the Big Ideas Theater. Now, for this session, we're going to be using the catch box. Now, this is a throwable microphone, as you see right here. Amy's going to be taking questions throughout the entire session. So if you have a question, raise your hand. We got a few of these great folks that are in the green shirts here. They will toss the microphone to you. Stand up, hold it right here, ask your question. And then when you're done with the question, just throw it back. Simple, easy peasy. Got it? Sweet. All right. Well, speaking of questions, when was the last time that you had an aha moment? This morning. And what did it feel like? Pretty good, right? Right? You know, rush of energy, you know, maybe a slight tingling, urgency to do something about it, right? Something like that. Maybe it's like a list of side effects in pharmaceutical ad, right? A rush of energy, maybe slight tingling, mild euphoria, excitement, urgency to do something about it. Well, you know what? Our next speaker is going to share with us not only what's behind that moment, but how we can set up the environment for our brains to generate more of them and more quality ideas and ahas. Now, she's the CEO of Peak Teams, a leadership development company combining adventure and neuroscience to inspire performance. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Amy Posey.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, 4 people in the front row. I appreciate that. So thanks, Glenn, for the introduction. This is my colleague, Tabitha Studley. She'll be doing some fun doodles while we're here today. But today is not about me or Tabitha. Today is about all of us. So what I'd like you to do, like Glenn said, I work for a company called Peak Teams. I'm the CEO. And what I'd like to do today is start us out with some connections. I see that you've strategically placed yourself just far enough away from the strangers next to you to, be comfortable and good, so that's good. But I want to mix it up a little bit. So what I'd like you to do is we're going to take 2 minutes. What I'd like you to do is stand up because I got the coveted after lunch spot. I'd like you to stand up. I'd like you to go find somebody in the room, next to you, in your row, whatever. And what I'd like you to do is answer this question with each other. Tell a little story. What I'd like you to do is share with that person, connect with them, introduce yourself, and share what's the thing over the last 12 months that you're most proud of. Just one thing. Think of one thing. Personally, professionally, think about the one thing that you're most proud of from the last 12 months. So I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock. Go ahead, everybody, get up, stretch your legs, connect with somebody in your row, in front of you, behind you, make a connection, say hello. What you're most proud of. For those of you just joining us, we're connecting and sharing the one thing we're most proud of from the last 12 months. So connect with somebody that's in your row, jump in, have a conversation. The one thing you're most proud of from the last 12 months, personally or professionally. All right, when you're finished, go ahead and grab a seat, everybody. So share that one thing that you're most proud of, personally or professionally. All right, folks, go ahead and grab a seat. Go ahead and grab a seat. All right, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. How'd that feel? Amazing, good, right? Like, I noticed the energy in the room, pumped up, right? We shared something that we're most proud of, and you can't do that like this, like, oh yeah, I'm really proud of my kids' soccer practice, and like they won the big game, and I'm really stoked about that, and I'm really proud of my son, Jim, and I just can't say enough. No, that's not how it works. Right? Like, you feel proud, chest out, you've got a smile on your face. It's positive. So I like to start out the conversation on a positive, and it turns out positivity is really important for being more innovative. So I'm gonna jump in and tell you a little bit more about who we are now that you all know somebody and have made a new friend, and you talked about something positive. Just a question, who talked about something in their personal life that they were proud of? Okay. Majority. How about professional life that you're proud of? Well, actually, it's about half and half. That's cool, right? Like, it's one of those things that I'm a firm believer in bringing your whole self to work, right? So the idea that sharing those things, having a conversation, use that at your next meeting when you have a conversation, you're running a meeting, see how that goes. See if you don't have a better outcome from your conversation, starting out with that question. My gift, yours to keep. So a little bit more about us. So I work for a company called Peak Teams. And at Peak Teams, we were founded in the idea that adventures inspire performance. So it's a very interesting story. In 2002, we were founded in Sydney, Australia, by a first descent skier, a mountaineer, and a South African game ranger. You're like, where's the neuroscience? It's coming, don't worry. So these adventurers went out and filmed their epic adventures and came back and created experiences for people to learn leadership lessons. So the interesting thing is, about 6 years ago, I joined the company. We're a small company based in San Francisco in the Bay Area and in New York City. And so about 4 years ago, one of those founders got in a tragic skiing accident and sustained a traumatic brain injury. And at that time, I had just sort of started my road down understanding neuroscience and starting to study applied neuroscience. And so we've been through an interesting path, and his healing process has been inspirational for our team. But we essentially started to weave in the idea of understanding our brains better in that adventure world to create high-performance teams. So our team goes out on adventures and expeditions and looks at how we operate together as humans. And then I look at the neuroscience behind why is that? Why do we do that? And so that's actually a picture of me. So Tabitha and I have actually gone on an adventure fairly recently to the Arctic. And so we had a team of 11 who crossed Baffin Island, which is in the Canadian Arctic. And so we sort of mixed this really interesting mix of adventure and neuroscience to look at our performance as humans. So that's a little bit about our company. Me personally, just so you know a little bit about who I am, I'm the CEO, and I'm also what I'd like to call a neurofacilitator. So a neuroscience facilitator. I made my own job title up. Pretty cool. So I basically go around and talk to people about their brains and how to use the information about our brains to be more productive and effective and happier and healthier. So I talk about a lot of different topics, and I mostly spend time with technology companies. So I live in Silicon Valley. I live in San Jose. I went back to school, and I got an executive master's in neuroleadership, so the science of looking at our brains as leaders. And I focused on the neuroscience of innovation. I'm going to share some of my research and findings and ideas in a really, hopefully, fun and interactive way with you today. But I have a business background as well as a science background. So I try and blend the two together to make it practical and applicable. And the other thing is I'm a bit of a brain geek. So I found the science just really fascinating and amazing, and I went deep. I'm like, oh, this stuff's good. I want to go deep. I'm a nerd. Let's get into it. So I went so deep that I've got kind of a funny story about my outfit today. This is actually, a designer made this dress, and it's actually a functional magnetic resonance imaging, an fMRI scan of someone's brain. So it's a brain pattern. Like, I went real deep, like I'm a nerd. So I'm going to share some things about the brain today, but I'm also an adventurer. That's part of my who I am and my side. I like to go paragliding, mountaining. We're not going to talk about the mountains today. We're going to talk about the brain. So that's a little bit about me. Tabitha, why don't you tell the folks about you? They can obviously see what you do.
Hi, my name's Tabitha. I'm based out of New York City. I'm what's called a graphic facilitator. So basically, I just listen and capture what I hear. So you'll see this board come alive with color over the next hour. I'll then take a photo of it and be available for you as well. But it's a really good way to remember where we were and to capture high-level concepts as well.
Yeah, so we'll get you a copy of that. We'll give you an email address on a card that if you want to grab on your way out. If you want to send us a note, we'll send you a copy of that. So you can keep it, share it, pass it along. It's yours to keep. All right, so that's a little bit about us. And so what I'm going to talk to you today about is really thinking about, it's the neuroscience of innovation, but it's really how do we generate those aha moments, those ideas, those insights. And I mean insights from a neuroscience standpoint, not from a marketing standpoint for any marketing folks in the crowd. And how do we turn those into new ways to innovate? Like what happens in our brains? So I'm basically going to talk about a couple of things. A little bit more about your brain so you can walk out smarter about how that thing works. We're going to do a couple of interesting experiments around insight and those aha moments. And then I'm going to give you 5 ingredients to walk away with to engineer your day, your life, your work style to try and be more innovative. Does that sound good? Yes. Yes? Okay, you're glad you're here. Good. All right, so when we think about insights and innovation, in my studies, it's really fascinating because I'm like, how do these aha moments happen? Like, is it magic? Well, okay, this is where I'm going to get really nerdy. So magic and magic tricks play a part in how neuroscientists study the brain when it comes to aha moments. I was like, oh my God, if I couldn't get nerdier, like I'm now getting nerdier. I'm going to talk about magic tricks. And so it turns out there's a couple of different magic tricks that some of the neuroscientists were using to basically look at how people had those aha moments, those moments of insight, those moments of like, oh, I figured it out. Oh, this is how that works. And so they put people in the scanner, and they'd show them magic tricks. And there was that moment, that moment when you figure out a magic trick and you go, oh, I know how that works, that aha, that just sort of suddenly happens. They used that as a prompt to study what happens in the brain. So I'm going to show you a video of a magic trick. I'm not actually going to do a magic trick. I decided, you know what? I can't cross that line. I'm just going to show you a video of a magic trick of someone doing this trick. And this is the trick that caused the most aha moments. It sort of generated the most spark in the fMRI machine, in that machine, to look at people's brains. So have a look at this magic trick. If you know this trick or have seen it before, don't give it away to your neighbor, because we're going to come back to it. Just think about it, and if you have that aha moment while you're watching, just hold it tight. Don't spoil the fun for anyone. So here is a magic trick.
I'm about to explain you and perform one of the very, very first tricks I have learned when I was a little child. It's very, very easy. After you learn it, you can easily perform it for your friends or family. I'm sure they're really going to enjoy it. And it uses actually silk, just like this. In this case, it's a red one. And after you place it into your closed fist, just like so, very, very clearly, the magic is about to happen. Without any mirrors or trapdoors, you'll see it really happen, because when I snap my fingers, just like this, the silk, believe it or not, magically morphed into an egg. Thank you very much. I can see by your reaction that you are really enjoying the trick.
Okay, yeah, I can see by your reaction everyone has really enjoyed this trick. I can tell. All right, so think about this trick. Think about like, okay, what is it? How did it happen? What's he doing there? What's the catch? So we're going to come back to that for a second, a little bit later. But what I want to do is kind of dive into thinking about our brains and thinking about our brains when it comes to coming up with new ideas, good ideas. So I've got a quiz question for you. What I'd like you to do is think about, where do you do your best thinking? There was a research study done by the University of London, sponsored by HP, in 2006, which is a little while ago. And they basically looked at 6,000 workers. And they found a certain percent of them did their best thinking at work. So in this research study, what do you think is the percentage of people who do their best thinking at work? Is it A, 10%, B, 25%, C, 42%, or D, 57%? So think about that for a second. So what I want to ask you to do is, if you think it's A, 10%, please stand up for me. Wow, quite a few of you think it's 10%. All right, go ahead and have a seat. How about B, 25%? Go ahead and stand up if you think it's 25%. Okay, big chunk of you. All right. Wow, we're not getting anything done at work, are we? How about C, 42%? Who thinks it's 42%? All right. Very hard workers in the room. Go ahead and have a seat. How about D, 57%? All 6 of you are like, I get a lot done. I'm productive, right? So the answer is A, 10%. Woo, yay for those of you like, we're not productive at work. Yay! Think about what you're cheering for, people. This is terrible news. So that's sad, right? Part of it is our brains haven't caught up to the modern work environment, right? Our brains are still evolving, still developing, still sort of adapting to that idea that we're to go and sit in a gray cubicle and look at a screen all day and answer emails and sit on phone calls and multitask and do 12 different things at once. Our brains haven't caught up to that. That turns out where we really don't do our best thinking at work, except for those of you who said 57% who are getting lots of stuff done. You are the minority. Thank you. Thank you for your work. So where do you do your best thinking? Shout it out for me. Where does it happen? In the shower. Oh, who's a shower thinker? Okay, a lot of shower thinkers. So there's some really interesting studies around shower thinking. So I know it sounds weird because you never have a piece of paper to catch those ideas, right? That's frustrating. But shower thinkers. So the person who sort of turned me on to neuroscience actually wrote a book. So he's a marine biologist and a turtle researcher by trade. And he wanted to know, like, why does water make us so chill and so happy? He's like, this is an interesting question, because he spent all these years looking at turtles and water, and he's like, why does this make me so relaxed? And it turns out he asked a bunch of neuroscientists to write a book on it, and none of them would. They're like, yeah, we're busy. And so he decided to write this book himself. He's like, you know what, I'm going to study this. I'm going to look at this. I'm a scientist. And so it's a book called Blue Mind. It's really cool. His name's Wallace J. Nichols. But he basically looked at, like, what happens to our brain on water. And so it turns out our brains get really relaxed on water, and that's where good things happen. So when you're relaxed and calm, which you are typically in the shower, that's where good thinking happens. Where else do people have their best thoughts? Driving. Okay, so driving, right? So think about your driving, your regular commute driving usually, right? Like you're just going and you're on your way to work and you are not paying attention and your mind is wandering, right? Because you sort of are in autopilot. And then you get to work, you're like, oh my God, how did I get here? How did that happen? And oftentimes it's because you're very relaxed and your brain is on autopilot, so you don't have to think or stress if you've got one of those commutes. God bless you. I live in the Bay Area. We don't have that commute. It's always stressful. But like you get in that routine. And when you're in routine and in habit, your brain goes on autopilot for those behaviors. Anybody a runner? Anybody get their thoughts while running? Yeah, like running, exercise, that's another thing. So the endorphins you get through exercise and that time and space, and especially if you're outside, right? Good thinking happens there. So that comes into some of this research about where, and I'm going to talk about environment sort of toward the end, but thinking about where you do your thinking is important. So what I'd like you to do is have a quick conversation with a person next to you, kind of people behind you. How do you plan for this throughout your week? This might be a short conversation for some of you. So how many hours do you plan to come up with innovative insights, ideas? How many hours do you schedule and plan in a week? Have a 30-second conversation. I think I know how this is going to go, but share that with the person next to you.